She followed them for 3 blocks in a silver Audi. No honk. No call-out. No gesture. Just silence. Creeping forward slowly behind them, matching their every step like a shadow with headlights. 2 women, walking their dogs on a quiet street. Leashes in one hand, filled waste bags in the other. Nothing illegal. Nothing disruptive. But that day, in a suburb just east of Cleveland, it didn't matter. Because somewhere behind that tinted windshield sat a woman with too much power, and way too much free time. When the Audi finally rolled up beside them, the window came down with a hiss. "Hi ladies, do you live around here?" The tone was fake sweet. Like syrup covering broken glass. One of the women nodded politely. The other hesitated. "We live just off this street," she offered. The woman in the Audi blinked slowly. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Well," she said, "this is an HOA neighborhood. And there have been complaints." Complaints. That word hung in the air like smoke. She didn't ask if the dogs were aggressive. They weren't. She didn't ask if they cleaned up after their pets. They had. Instead, she leaned forward and added, "Since you don't technically live here, you can't walk your dogs here anymore. This is private property." She pointed vaguely toward the entrance of the neighborhood. "There's a sign. You should have seen it." They looked at each other, confused. They had passed this street dozens of times over the last 2 years. Walked it. Jogged it. Watched kids ride their bikes here. There was no gate. No guard. No posted rules. The only sign said, "No public parking." But before they could speak again, the Audi reversed, fast, then rolled away without another word. Backwards. Like retreating from a crime scene. The 2 women stood there for a long minute, dogs wagging, air tense. Then one of them said quietly, "Did she just stalk us for walking our dogs?" What they didn't know. That drive-by accusation would lead to something much bigger. Because this wasn't just a Karen with a clipboard. This was a woman misusing the power of an HOA, a power no one had questioned for years. And what started as a walk through a peaceful street was about to turn into a fight for public access, personal rights, and neighborhood truth. Emily and Rachel had lived just 3 houses down from the entrance to the subdivision for a little over 2 years. Their street was loud. 4 lanes of traffic. Constant honking. No sidewalks. So when they adopted their 2 rescue pups, Clover and Pepper, both under 20 pounds, they started walking through the neighboring subdivision instead. It wasn't gated. There were no residents-only signs. No chains. No cameras. Just a quiet cul-de-sac lined with identical brick homes and trees that bent gently in the wind. For 2 years, they strolled through that loop nearly every evening. Same route. Same routine. Sometimes they waved to gardeners. Sometimes they nodded at joggers. No one ever stopped them. No one ever said a word. Until that Audi appeared. The encounter with the woman in the car, tight blazer, expensive sunglasses, too much perfume, rattled them more than they expected. It wasn't what she said. It was how she said it. Accusatory. Like they didn't belong. Emily, the more composed of the 2, laughed it off at first. Probably just someone having a bad day. But Rachel wasn't convinced. She followed us. From the second we entered the subdivision. "Who does that?" Later that night, Emily sat on the couch with her laptop, Pepper curled up next to her. She started Googling. Cleveland HOA rules. Walking dogs in HOA neighborhoods. Private roads in Ohio. Everything she found was vague. Most sites mention that some HOA streets are technically private, but they're supposed to be clearly posted, signs, gates, or legal notices filed with the city. Otherwise, streets are presumed to be public right-of-way. She flipped to another tab and pulled up satellite view of their route. Dead end. One way in. One way out. And no sign of any gate. Rachel came over and stared at the screen. "That's why it's so quiet," she said. "No through traffic. No one speeding. It's perfect for walking." They decided to check again the next morning. And sure enough, at the front of the subdivision was one single sign. White post. Green lettering. Faded over time. It didn't say private property. It didn't say residents only. It said no public parking. Nothing else. Emily tilted her head. That's what she was talking about. Rachel pulled out her phone and snapped a picture. Later, they asked their next-door neighbor, an older woman named Joan who also had 2 pugs, if she ever had issues walking through that same street. Joan raised her eyebrows. Down that cul-de-sac? Walk there 3 times a week. Never had a problem. She paused. Unless you ran into Karen. Karen? Short hair. Always in her car. Thinks she runs the whole subdivision. Rachel's eyes narrowed. Silver Audi? Joan nodded. That's her. So it wasn't just them. Karen had a history. A pattern. But here's where things started to twist. Emily, still unsettled, decided to call the city that afternoon. Just to clarify. To find out, legally, what kind of street they were walking on. The city clerk was kind. Helpful. She said the road might be private, but she wasn't sure. Technically, yes, some HOA streets are not city-maintained, she explained. But if it's not properly posted, the public can't be expected to know. Emily explained their situation. The dogs. The route. The creepy Audi. The tone in the woman's voice. When she finished, there was a pause on the line. Then the clerk said, more sternly this time, Following you with a car? That's not an HOA issue. That's harassment. She promised to check the city records. To get back to them. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. Something about the encounter didn't sit right. It wasn't just the rule. It was the entitlement. The need to control space that wasn't clearly marked. The way Karen tried to turn a public place into her private territory. She closed her laptop and whispered to herself. If they want to play legal games, then we'll play legal games. The next time it happened, it wasn't a car. It was Karen. On foot. She was standing at the edge of the cul-de-sac. Arms crossed. Clipboard in hand. Waiting. Emily and Rachel had just turned the corner with Clover and Pepper when they saw her. Same sharp sunglasses. Same pursed lips. Same stiff posture that made her look more like a mall security guard than a homeowner. She didn't wait for them to speak. You were told not to walk your dogs here. Rachel stopped short. We were told this was private property, she said calmly. We checked. There's no signage that says that. Karen's voice went colder. There's a sign. You ignored it. Rachel held up her phone. You mean the one that says no public parking? Karen ignored the phone. She stepped forward. Residents have the right to protect their space. We've had complaints. And if you keep trespassing, we will escalate. Emily narrowed her eyes. Complaints? About what? Karen didn't blink. Poop. Noise. Intimidation. Clover, the tiny terrier, barked once. Then sat. Rachel laughed. Seriously? Karen leaned in. Too close. This is your last warning. Then she turned and walked away, not back toward a house, but to her car parked 2 blocks down. She opened the door without looking back. This time, she wasn't lurking. She was watching. Recording. Targeting. Rachel and Emily finished their walk in silence. But as soon as they got home, they started documenting everything. The city still hadn't called back. So Emily dug deeper. She found the county recorder's office online. Searched for the subdivision's development plan. Clicked through grainy PDFs from over a decade ago. And there it was. In the 2011 expansion plans submitted by the HOA, the street was labeled private. But nowhere on the city or county's websites was the street designated as such. No road maintenance records. No tax parcel exceptions. No updated traffic restrictions. It was like the HOA had declared the road private, and no one ever followed up. Rachel scrolled through Google Maps. The street signs in the area? white with green lettering. In some states, that color coding means private road. But not in Ohio. In Ohio, there's no statewide regulation for street sign colors. It's up to the county. And their county? Didn't list anything. No signage. No markings. No official record. Legally speaking, the public couldn't be expected to know this was a restricted area. Emily printed everything she found. Highlighted key sections. Circled the part of the county's subdivision law that required proper signage for any restriction of public access. Then came the final piece. At the end of the cul-de-sac, where Karen claimed they were trespassing, a sidewalk extended straight into another neighborhood. A public one. No HOA. No gates. Which meant the sidewalk itself had to be public access. And if the sidewalk was public, so was the road leading to it. The next morning, they walked the route again. This time, a different neighbor stepped out. An older man. Quiet voice. Gentle face. "Are you two the ones Karen's been bothering?" he asked. Emily paused. "We've had a few conversations." He sighed. "Don't let her get to you. She's not the HOA president. Not anymore." Rachel blinked. "She's not?" "Nope," he said. "She got voted out last year. But she still walks around like she owns the place." That changed everything. Karen wasn't enforcing rules. She was bluffing. Pretending. Threatening people with authority she no longer had. Back at home, Emily opened her laptop one more time. This wasn't about dog poop. This was about control. And Karen had crossed the line from annoying to dangerous. They weren't going to let it go. Not this time. It was a Tuesday morning when the call came back. The city clerk sounded different this time. Her tone sharper. More certain. "I've reviewed the subdivision," she said. "And I have to tell you, there's no record of that street being legally private under city jurisdiction. It was marked private in the developer's initial proposal, but it was never finalized through municipal approval. No signage. No recorded gating. No access restriction filed." Emily let the silence hang for a moment. "So we're allowed to walk there?" The clerk didn't hesitate. "Yes. As far as the city is concerned, that's a public access road." That was all Rachel needed to hear. They didn't just want to keep walking their dogs. They wanted the harassment to stop. And they knew exactly how to do it. That night, Rachel posted in their local neighborhood Facebook group. Not the HOA's private group, but the public one, with nearly every resident from surrounding blocks, including the subdivision. "Just a heads up. If anyone sees a woman in a silver Audi following dog walkers and claiming they can't be in the subdivision, she has no legal authority to do so. The city confirmed the road is public. Also, she is no longer on the HOA board per multiple residents. Please be safe, and feel free to contact the city clerk's office for clarification." Then they attached photos. Photos of the entrance sign. Screenshots of the county map. A copy of the email from the city. And finally, a short clip Rachel had quietly taken with her phone the day Karen confronted them face to face. Karen, standing there, clipboard in hand, saying, "If you keep trespassing, we will escalate." Within 12 hours, the post had 300 likes. And 47 comments. Some were angry. "She did the same thing to my daughter last month. I was told I couldn't rollerblade there. I live 2 blocks over. She yelled at my husband for jogging through with our toddler in a stroller." Others were stunned. "I thought she was the HOA president. So she's been bluffing this whole time?" By the next evening, someone shared a photo of Karen in the HOA meeting minutes from over a year ago. Removed from board after procedural violation. That detail hit like a bomb. Karen wasn't just pretending to enforce the rules. She'd been removed for violating them. And yet, for the past year, she had continued to harass people, walk around with a clipboard, and quote imaginary policies to scare off anyone she didn't like the look of. One woman commented, "I always thought it was strange how she knew everyone's names but wasn't listed on anything official." Another added, I filed a police report on her last fall. She screamed at my son and blocked him with her car because he was skateboarding. It wasn't just about Rachel and Emily anymore. This was a pattern. And the entire neighborhood had just connected the dots. That Friday, someone left a sign at the entrance of the subdivision. Not official. Not city-issued. Just cardboard, stapled to a wooden stake. Public access confirmed. No Karen patrol required. The next day, Karen's silver Audi was seen circling the block twice, then leaving. Fast. She didn't come back for a while. But Rachel and Emily? They kept walking. Same time. Same route. Same two dogs wagging their tails like nothing had ever happened. Only now, they were joined by others. Couples. Families. Kids on scooters. Elderly neighbors with canes and little dogs waddling behind them. A quiet statement. One step at a time. The neighborhood was taking back its streets. The HOA board didn't call a meeting. They didn't have to. After Rachel's post and the tidal wave of resident comments, the pressure became impossible to ignore. The subdivision's real HOA president, a quiet man named Mr. Levine, posted a rare public statement in the official HOA group. It read, No individual not currently serving on the board is authorized to enforce HOA regulations. Harassment or misrepresentation of authority will not be tolerated. If anyone feels threatened or misled by a resident acting in this way, please contact the board directly, or law enforcement if necessary. The message was clear. Karen had been cut off. And the community now had written proof. 3 days later, Mr. Levine approached Rachel and Emily while they were out with Clover and Pepper. He looked tired, but grateful. I wanted to say thank you, he said, for bringing this to light. Most people just ignore her, or avoid the street. But you stood your ground. And because of that, we're cleaning house. He told them Karen had been warned, formally in writing. If she continued impersonating a board member or harassing other residents, legal action would be pursued. But it didn't stop there. 2 other families came forward with recordings of Karen making false claims. One was a voicemail where she pretended to be from the city. Another was a clip of her blocking a teenage girl on a bike and demanding she state her address. Those were turned into the police. Within a week, Karen received a formal citation for impersonation and harassment, a misdemeanor charge that would remain on her record if she didn't complete mandated community mediation and a public apology. The apology came reluctantly. Typed. Generic. Posted to the HOA board. To the residents of Maple Grove, I acknowledge that my recent actions may have caused confusion or discomfort. I was acting with concern for the neighborhood, but in hindsight, I understand that I overstepped my role. I regret any distress caused. No mention of Rachel. No mention of the car. No mention of Clover, Pepper, or the months she spent intimidating families behind a fake badge of authority. But no one cared. Because everyone saw the truth now. The neighborhood changed after that. More people started using the sidewalks. The quiet street became livelier, not noisy, but full of life. A chalk message appeared near the entrance one day. In big pink letters it read, Dogs welcome. So are their humans. Another house, one that had stayed silent during the drama, hung a little flag on their porch. Public streets. Private kindness. Rachel and Emily walked the loop every evening, just like before. But now neighbors waved first. Some stopped to chat. Others walked with them. A few apologized for not speaking up sooner. Karen? She still lived at the far end of the cul-de-sac. Her silver Audi now parked 2 driveways further up than before. She no longer carried a clipboard. And when she passed Rachel and Emily on the sidewalk, she didn't say a word. Not a nod. Not a glare. Just silence. The same silence she once used to follow them. Only now, that silence belonged to her. Spring came early that year. The trees along the subdivision bloomed just a little brighter. The breeze along the sidewalk felt lighter. And the evenings, those quiet walks Emily and Rachel loved so much, finally returned to what they used to be: peaceful. Not cautious. Not tense. Just peaceful. Clover chased butterflies. Pepper trotted proudly in his little harness. And this time, when Rachel looked over her shoulder, it wasn't because she felt watched. It was because someone waved. It wasn't just about the walk. It never really was. It was about space. About belonging. About the invisible ways people try to take things that aren't theirs to take: space, voice, safety. And how sometimes the smallest resistance, just a walk, just a post, just a question, can crack the illusion. Karen had counted on silence. She thought no one would challenge her. That a clipboard and a cold tone were enough to rule over sidewalks and strollers and strangers she didn't approve of. She was wrong. Because Rachel and Emily weren't out looking for a fight. They were just walking their dogs. But when the fight came to them, they didn't back down. They asked questions. They pulled records. They stood firm. And the community? It remembered. Not with fanfare. Not with banners. But in the way people stepped onto the sidewalk without hesitation again. The way new faces showed up for walks. The way neighbors, who once just nodded, stopped to ask about Pepper's paw or Clover's latest trick. The street was still quiet. But it wasn't under control. It was free. One evening, Emily turned to Rachel as they reached the end of the loop. "You know," she said, "I used to hate conflict." Rachel smiled. "Still do?" Emily laughed. "But this time, I'm glad we didn't let it go." Rachel looked ahead, where the last stretch of sidewalk curved gently toward the main road. "Because some fights," she said softly, "aren't really about winning." Emily nodded. "They're about reminding people they never had the right to take something away." Behind them, the sun dipped low over the rooftops. Clover barked at a squirrel. Pepper let out a proud little huff. And two women, two dogs, and a sidewalk that belonged to everyone, walked home. Together. Free.